Sa brahmeti hovacha brahmano va etadvijaye mahiyadvamiti tato haiva vidanchakara brahmeti.
Brahman indeed, she said. This is Uma talking. Remember, the apparition disappeared and in its place stood Uma. This was part 3. Is like to be continued. You know, you get to the end of your episode and now it's different. And now end of episode means next episode you click. Back that time, next episode meant you had to wait a whole week. It's more aligned to Upanishad. Good, that's why the good old days. And now, lack of self-control, people get through a whole series in a matter of an evening. You know, night owls. That's why people sit up till 12-1. Whole series they consume. Anyway, back there to be continued. Not to be continued. You know, it's actually interesting. You know, you sit down to watch whatever your favorite series was, you know, and usually half an hour and it's finished, you know. Very occasionally, Friends, you know, but you watch Friends, and we get to the end and you're like, this is not ending, this is not ending, to be continued. What? You have to wait a whole week to find out what happens in the next episode of Friends. Anyway, to be continued. This is the continuation, what we were talking about. So remember, Indra pursues, the apparition disappears, he carries on going, and in its place stood Uma. Remember, Uma represents is the daughter of the Himalayas and represents that knowledge. So Indra says, Brahman indeed. Remember, Indra poses, what is that apparition? Uma responds, Brahman indeed, she said. Through Brahman's victory alone you have attained glory. Then alone he understood that indeed was Brahman. Indra understood what the apparition was. Remember, Brahman was attempting to remind them, hey, listen, you guys have forgotten. You guys have forgotten why you won that victory. And not that Brahman needs some praise or Brahman needs some, you know, accolade. You know, where's my award for winning the victory? Not that. To educate, to remind them, you didn't do this by yourselves. In fact, luckily for me, this is fresh in my mind. I was chatting to a friend this morning, and he was telling me he coaches. He's a coach, sports coach, and he was telling me about you know, some people that he's coached and have done very well in sports, and they get to, and he's coached them through these stage races, grueling stage races, the Absa Epic, you may have heard of it, a very famous mountain biker, coaches them through it. They're telling me these stories how some of these grown men CEOs are on the verge of tears, and he gets them through the week. End of the week, they, look what I've done. It forgets them completely. They're not even a phone call, thanks. I was like, you know what, my friend, this reminds me exactly of what is happening tonight in class. So I told him the story. So and now I'm getting to explain it a little bit more. So exactly like that. They had forgotten that it was Brahman. Brahman gave them the victory. Without Brahman, it's impossible. Without the coach, you know, way you would have finished the race. Impossible. But just to remind them. So thus did Indra learn vicariously what the spirit was. See, Indra represents the scriptures. So through the scriptures, and that's why we are studying the scriptures. This is scriptural literature. In fact, the highest scriptural literature. It's through the literature that we understand what Brahman is. Understand in the sense of that in itself being a limitation. So from the scriptures, we gain at most an appreciation that, yes, there is this thing, whatever it is. We give it the word Brahman, Atman, in-living principle, if you want to be fancy. There is this in-living principle, in-living our perceptions, actions, emotions, and thoughts. That knowledge we gain from the scriptures, which is why Brahman indeed, Uma is saying that, Brahman indeed gave you the victory. The scriptures are telling us what's going on. What is the role of Brahman in our existence? In fact, it's everything. And it's so powerful. See, when you stick with it, that's why study is so important. Because you see how these thoughts and ideas start percolating your day. You sit down to do some work. You may be cleaning your house. And suddenly that thought hits you. You sit back and the house is clean. Yeah, what enabled me to do that? Why are you vacuuming? Why are you wiping? What's driving these actions? How is it that I can sit here and type a mail? How can I sit and type a talk? I must have some knowledge. I must be wise. I must know what I'm talking about. Brahman is responsible. And the more you can allow that thought to pervade your actions, pervade your perceptions, pervade your thoughts, the closer you're getting to that point of spiritual evolution while you are evolving spiritually. So again, and luckily we covered it in Karishma's question. Indra represents the mind and intellect. Of course, we know that. The mind and intellect pursues, makes a choice to pursue that path, follows that apparition. Where did it go? Where did it go? I must find out. See, elsewhere, it's amazing how it happens. As soon as you surrender to even just that thought of what else is there? What could it be? What is that spirit? All of a sudden, if by appointment, you'll see how something happens. I don't know what happens. Something rushes to support. All of a sudden, you find yourself with a copy of, you don't know how it got there, copy of Vedanta treatise in your hand. Or you find yourself sitting in a lecture with some wise master. How did I get you? That's how it works. As soon as that pursuit starts, that thought just comes in. Uma appears. Suddenly Uma appears. Where did Uma come from? Amazing, amazing. So Uma appears. And you start investigating. That's the symbolism of Indra asking that question. That's where it starts. You start questioning. What is that? How is that? How is it possible? Where did it... With that questioning, with that dedicated interest and pursuit, slowly things get revealed. Again, don't mistake this. Pursuit of mind and intellect. Mind and intellect gives you Brahman. Mind and intellect can give you knowledge, yes. Can give you an extreme sense of devotion. Both of those are necessary for enlightenment, but by themselves per se, do not give you enlightenment. So however much study, reflection you do, can't directly give enlightenment. See, because there's no direct cause and effect relationship. See, because everything in this world, you must appreciate, is finite. The self is infinite. Something else. The self is infinite. This world is finite. So even the knowledge of Brahman is still infinite. So at best, what finite knowledge can do, the finite knowledge cannot give you the infinite reality. Directly, it can't. But what finite knowledge, and when I say finite knowledge, knowledge of scriptures, I'm not talking mundane knowledge in the world. I'm talking knowledge of scriptures, still finite. That finite, then you may say, well, if it's finite, if it's restricted to the world, if it's terrestrial, why are we studying it? What is the point? Because that finite knowledge can remove the finite covering that is the barrier between us and God. What is that barrier between us and God? The desires. The desires are finite. Even though you may be thinking, at this point, they seem infinite. How many desires I have? Infinite number of desires. But they are finite. And you can remove that finite covering with finite knowledge. So they do play a role. They are important. Don't leave it. So once you remove the covering, indirectly you get the infinite. See, it's like sunshine represents the reality, the Brahman, right? Now you are indoors, right? And there's a roof over your head. You're there, how do I get sunshine in? So sunshine is everywhere, right? But you have restricted the sunlight by putting a roof over your head. Sunshine can't come in. The only way to get the sunshine in is to remove the roof. Take that finite covering away, automatically this sunshine comes in. Same principle. So, like Indra, when the spiritual seeker pursues sincerely, as I said, with effort, pursues knowledge and devotion, both are essential ingredients in the spiritual path. You cannot have knowledge alone. You cannot have devotion alone. Both are required. Remember, we talked about the saw cutting through steel plate. A metal saw cuts through a steel plate. It won't work unless there is oil. Otherwise, that blade locks, it jams. Similarly, to cut through our ignorance, we need the saw of knowledge with the oil of devotion. Knowledge and devotion go hand in hand. So yes, they of course play a role. We get knowledge, we get devotion, and we get ourselves up to a higher and higher spiritual heart. This is spiritual evolution, right? And then what? There's a pause, even in meditation. This is why the answer was carried across from part 3 to part 4. You may be thinking, oh, this is related to what happened in part 3. Why didn't they just keep it in part 3? Why is it in part 4? Because it takes time. It's not directly available. You can't directly get there with mind and intellect. Even in meditation, silence, silence. Suddenly you get stuck in that silence. In that silence, you realize the self. There's a pause. There's a gap. So, number one, you will need to wait. You'll have to wait. That's why Indra waited, and then the answer appeared. So even in meditation, final gateway, you wait in that silence. Ultimately, it's revealed. So it takes time. That's why it's transposed from 3 to 4. It just takes time. So you have to be fair on yourself. It's not an overnight quick fix situation to enlightenment we're providing here. You should understand by now, requires concerted, dedicated effort over a period of time. Then that knowledge slowly seeps in. That knowledge, what? Of the scriptures, slowly seeps into your personality. That knowledge is converted to wisdom. All of a sudden you start living those principles. That wisdom eventually culminates in self-realization. But it takes time. You'll have to reflect, contemplate, meditate. Then you attain that ultimate state of self-realization. Everyone okay? Right.
Tasmad va ete deva atitarami vanyan devan yadagnir vayurindraste yenannedishtam pasparshuste yenat prathamo vidanchakara brahmeti Tasmad va indroti tarami vanyan devan sayenannedishtam pasparsha sayenat prathamo vidanchakara brahmeti.
Therefore, verily, these gods, Agni, Vāyu, Indra, even excel other gods, for they indeed approached this nearest. Thus they indeed were the first to know Brahman. Therefore, verily Indra excels other gods, for he approached this nearest. Thus he indeed was the first to know Brahman. So, gods and this god and that god and all these gods, and this is a common theme. Especially when we look at the Hindu religion, the system of belief, is one of the things that anybody, even I don't know anything about Hinduism, Hinduism, lots of gods you guys have, very spiritual people, so many gods are there. And now what you have to appreciate is it's highly philosophical, and not that there are many gods, and we all know there's one God. Wherever you're coming from, there is but one God, the Father in heaven, the supreme reality. It goes by many different names, but any religion will say to you, there's one God. Now, why Hinduism? You guys must be confused. So many gods you say there are, but we know there's only one God. No. Even Hinduism knows that there is one God. So what are they talking all these gods? And what you have to appreciate, you see, these guys were too sharp. Too sharp. What do all these gods represent? What are they all doing? Right. Now, these, back in that time, these great sages, these masters, they were so well versed and knowledgeable about human behavior. They understood that it's the human mission in life to evolve towards the state of spiritual perfection. They understood that. There's nothing else we're doing here. Everything else is a waste of time. They understood that. And of course, through the teachings, directed people towards that. But, there's a big but. The mind has a particular nature. The mind has a particular nature. And the mind loves to go to all those things that it loves. Its desires. Now, the mind goes here, the mind goes there, the mind goes everywhere. It's meant to go to the reality, to Brahman, right? But we know the mind is not like that. The mind is fluid. It goes with the flow. So these guys, they thought, okay. That's a tricky one. How are we going to figure this out? Because tell someone, Brahman, just dedicate your thoughts and everything, go towards Brahman. We all know how hard that is. So they had to come up with a better solution to this problem. People are struggling. They can't just put their minds on Brahman. It's not working. Come on, guys. Let's think about this. How can we help humanity here? They came up with an amazing concept, amazing idea. One guy, one great saint. You know what? I got a perfectly good idea here. Everywhere the mind goes to, let's plonk a god there. So the mind goes to, what is everyone looking for in the world? Oh, no, well, everyone wants money, wealth. So when we'd say wealth, we'll put a goddess there, Lakshmi. We'll call her Lakshmi. So when they are pursuing wealth, goddess is there. Like everything like that, they planted these gods and goddesses everywhere. So even in your mundane interactions in the world, your thoughts are still going towards something higher. This is the ingeniousness of them. So in understanding this mind's nature, because the mind has a nature, and again, you must remember, we're not here to destroy the mind. We got to work with the mind. It's part of our personality. We got to get it on board. We got to work with it. And this is a very effective way in which we can get the mind, usher it up towards something higher. So we are dealing with, not to, obviously all the gods are there, but we are particularly dealing with these three gods. Agni, Vāyu, and Indra. Therefore, verily, these gods, Agni, Vāyu, Indra, even excel other gods. So first of all, you must appreciate there is a hierarchy. Why did they send Agni first? Agni represents organs of action, which represents ritualistic worship, gross worship. That's the lowest form. So in terms of subtlety, in terms of, let's call it greatness, let's say, Indra is the greatest, the ruler, they call, of all the gods. That's the mind and intellect. Next is Vāyu, and next is Agni. So all these gods even excel other gods. See, whereas all the other gods, Saraswati, knowledge, Lakshmi, wealth, whatever other gods, are all in the world. So you're still pursuing the world, whereas these gods represent something higher. Spiritual pursuit. See, they went to find out what that apparition was. Okay, they may have not been successful in their pursuits, but they were still gearing towards something higher. For they indeed approached this nearest. They went there. If you are pursuing mundane things in the world, you're not going there. Like I said at the beginning of the class, 95% of people, what is this thing, God, all of that? No, everyone follows religion. Whether they're spiritual is another thing. There's another whole discussion. You can claim to be religious stalwart and not be spiritual. It is possible. Anyway, so pursuit of all the other gods is not even interested really in Brahman. At least these three gods, that pursuit is there. So when we talk about a fire god, again, this is ritualistic worship. Doing some puja, whatever it is, a very mechanical type worship. We talked about lighting that ahuti, that flame shooting up. This would be mechanical worship. So that is the lowest form because it's organs of action. Next is Vāyu, which represents the pranas, the organs of perception. So now we have auditory and perceptual worship, and that is slightly higher, more subtle, therefore superior god. Vāyu is superior to Agni, in essence. So that's why Agni came first, Vāyu came second. This is a subtler form of worship. But again, they couldn't ascertain what that apparition was. Finally, you have Indra. That's the highest form, the mind and intellect. As we saw, the mind and intellect can take us right up to that point, right up there. So just various equipments, organs of action, organs of perception, mind and intellect, that much we understand, representing various grades of spiritual practice, let's call it. Now, they all are pursuing something higher. Lowest form is mechanical, ritualistic worship. Highest form is knowledge and devotion. Of course, we could even break that down because knowledge is superior to devotion because intellect is superior to mind. So, therefore, verily these gods, Agni, Vāyu, Indra, even excel other gods because other gods are still worldly, material pursuits. For these three gods indeed approach this nearest. You get as close with these, using your equipments to pursue the higher, you get closest. So even within this, there's two types of worship here. You'll see it in the book. One is known as objective worship. And this is represented by Agni and Vāyu. This is called Saguna Upasana. Saguna Upasana. This is, layman's terms, idol worship. Idol worship in the sense of the idol representing an ideal. See, even very gross is stone. So some statue, some temple, people go there for worship, right? That idol of some of you have been to the temples in India, would see that Shivalingam. It's a stone. It's a lot of significance in that. But that is idol worship in a sense. But gross. Stone is gross. Now you get next is fire worship. You will perceive fire with your eyes, feel it with your body. Or sound. That sound, Om. Remember we discussed Vedanta treatise. Om is an idol representing the ideal, representing Brahman. See, they all represent Brahman. Again, different grades according to the subtlety of the equipment approaching it. In this case, the three gods, lowest, middle, highest. Agni, Vāyu, Indra. So, Saguna Upasana, this is idol worship representing Agni and Vāyu, because this is the organs of action, the organs of perception. Then we have Nirguna Upasana. And this is the formless worship. So the seeker is able to conceive and pursue a formless reality. It doesn't have to be represented by an idol. They can conceive of this formless reality. We've discussed this before, the difference between worship of a form vis-a-vis the worship of formless reality. And again, all it means is at different stages on the journey. Some people still rely on a form to pour out their devotion, to direct their mind towards some sort of form. That could be anything. A cross, it could be the symbol Om, it could be a Buddha statue, it could be whatever. Many, many different forms are there. And this is Saguna Upasana. A person who is more evolved doesn't rely on the forms anymore. He doesn't need a statue. He doesn't need the picture of the guru. He doesn't need a big Om above his bed. Because his mind and intellect has tuned in to such a degree that he can appreciate that Brahman is this formless reality. It is not embedded. It's not restricted to a form. Similarly, this is this hierarchy that exists. Therefore, verily, Indra excels other gods, for he approached this nearer. So Indra is the ruler of the gods. So that nirguna, nir means non, guna is qualities. So qualityless or formless. That's how we get to that nirguna, formless worship, upasana, worship. Indra represents this formless worship. Because through the mind and intellect, you can conceive of the reality sans form. See, people say, well, Brahman, you say Brahman is pervading the world, everything. That tree is Brahman. Yes, the tree is Brahman. Motor car is Brahman. Motor car is Brahman. My partner is Brahman. Believe it or not, partner is Brahman. So everything is Brahman. Everything in the world is Brahman. Everything represents Brahman. But everything in the world is form, right? So that, in a sense, you get to that stage where you can see Brahman existing in forms. We're talking about idols here, representing an ideal. But for a person who is in this Saguna Upasana, they'll see Brahman existing as form. Slightly more evolved person understands that it's not representative. Brahman doesn't necessarily, isn't the car, something pervading that. Something subtler. I don't know what it is. And not that if you are worshipping form, if you're Saguna Upasana, you're off. No, it's not that. Stages of evolution. You may be at the organs of action stage still, or maybe organs of perception stage, or maybe mind and intellect, or a combination. But what's important is that you're not pursuing the other gods. You're not pursuing the world. That's the vast difference. That's why we take the verses together. The first verse is saying these three gods excelled all other gods. In other words, they were able to pursue the reality. Whereas this verse now is saying even Indra excels the other two gods. Difference between formless and worshipping a form.
तस्यैष आदेशो यदेतद्विद्युतो व्यद्युतदा इति यमेमिषदा इत्यधिदैवतम् अथाध्यात्मं यदेतद्गच्छतीव च मनोनेन चैतदुपस्मरत्यभीक्ष्णगो सङ्कल्पः.
This is its analogy. That which is like the flash of lightning, lo, that is which is like the blinking of eyes, lo, thus the cosmos. Now, as regards oneself, that is, as the mind constantly entertains thoughts, so does it go to this. What's he saying? You see, it comes back to the point. You read the mantra, what are they talking about? So cryptic. This is its analogy. What is its analogy? That which is like the flash of, flash of lightning, blinking of eyes, thus the cosmos. It takes extraordinary vision to be able to dig out something from that. Lucky we have a master who's done the heavy lifting for us. So, in these two mantras, which we're going to begin discussing now, mantras 4 and 5, there exists 3 analogies, right? These 3 analogies are to indicate the Supreme Reality God, known as adeshas. These adeshas are pointers to Brahman. Now, bear in mind, just because they are pointers to Brahman, because this is for people that are not necessarily able to understand deep philosophy. So they give these adeshas, which, again, they're not without meaning. Please don't take them lightly. They're not without meaning or substance, but they're just simple illustrations that describe the reality, adeshas. Also, there's upadesha. Now, upadesha is slightly different, and these are the guru's advice to the disciple, both intellectual and explanatory. So this would obviously be for someone who can appreciate the deeper import in the philosophy. These now need to be assimilated by the student. See, the adeshas are almost like simple instructions, right? Simple instructions, this is how you get there. The upadesha is more advice for the student to contemplate on. He's not giving it directly, kind of indirectly. Food for thought, they call it. So you'll have to think about it, reflect upon it. The upadesha. Think about it, reflect upon it. Slowly, slowly assimilate that knowledge. Start translating that into wisdom where you practice it. Different effect it has. So this is the Upadesha is an advice to get you to Brahman. Those who lack subtlety to pursue the Upadesha, in other words, they don't have the capacity, right, to start poring over highly philosophical text. It's fine. Don't worry, you guys have got you covered. So, okay, maybe it's a bit too heavy. The Upanishad stuff, very heavy. It's fine. Then you got the adeshas. Here we go. Here's a pointer. This is Brahman. Plain and simple. Otherwise, you got the upadeshas. Requires a lot more application for those who have the capacity. So, here these adeshas, 3 adeshas, these analogies are given for the student to try and understand what is that reality. First, the Knowledge was given out. Then an explanation. Still not getting through. Big long story. Still think I got it, but I'm not quite sure I've got this Upanishad yet. Here we go. Make it simple for you. Adeshas, 3 analogies, pit, pat, pat, and you got it. So he presents these 3 analogies here, which we're going to be discussing. So again, it of course is not simply just, okay, Adeshas doesn't require my application, I'll listen to them, whatever. Upanishad student is still high caliber, so you'll have to exercise some thinking with regards to this. But again, it's just mechanical in a way. It's more like a command or an order. So these 3 analogies, and he says there, thus the cosmos, the end of the 4th mantra, he says, thus the cosmos. So the first 2 analogies cover the world. In fact, they all cover the world. But the first 2, external. Remember, we talked about this form. This is objective worship, in a way. So the first 2, the lightning is furthest, right? Furthest from it. Lightning you see far in the distance. So that's furthest. Again, he builds it up in terms of subtlety. So lightning, big lightning. You see it. It's the first analogy. Second analogy is something subtler, blinking of the eyes. That's right here. Your eyelids are about as close as you can get to yourself. Right here. So that's the second analogy. Then the third is something different. The third is something internal, the mind. We refer to it here. So, Adi Daivatam, Adi Bhutikam, Adi Yatmikam. So one is Adi Daivitam, is the cosmos, that lightning. Adi Bhutikam is objective. And Adhyatmikam is subjective. So again, it's like these 3 grades he was talking of before. These 3 levels of subtlety. See, you close your eyes. What's there? You can't see anything, right? So you're stuck with thoughts. Essentially, if you close your eyes, you're stuck with thoughts. Subtlest. Then you open your eyes and you start seeing the world. So the world starts from your eyes. And you look. Entire cosmos unfolds. You look far, stars you see in the distance. So from subtlest to grossest, going outwards. What is the 3 analogy called? I'm not sure. What's your clarification, Paul?
No, it's fine. You've just given it to us.
Okay.
It's okay.
It should be there in the text as well. When you start reflecting, you'll see it's all there in the text. So these 3 analogies. So the first one he talks about is this lightning, this flash of lightning that comes. What is a flash of lightning? That which is like the flash of lightning low. That means Brahman. Brahman is like a flash of lightning, right? Yeah. See, any of you have been walking, hiking? Sometimes they're in the dark, the lightning flashing. I don't know if you have experienced. I've personally experienced this, so I can relate this. You're walking, pitch dark, you're walking somewhere. And suddenly lightning comes. What happens? It's amazing that one flash of lightning reveals everything. All of a sudden, you can see everything. You see who's in front of you. Okay, everyone's here. You see, that's where that thing is. Everything is revealed, crystal clear, for an instant. Just an instant. That light, it's so brilliant though. It lights everything. I mean, going from pitch darkness into all of a sudden, everything is crystal clear. I'm not talking in just one strike of lightning you see in the distance out at sea. I'm talking when it's right here around you. That brilliant strike of lightning. Everything is revealed. Instantaneous illumination. What is the problem with that, though? Anybody? What's the problem with that lightning?
It's very short.
It is. As soon as it's come, it's gone. And then what happens after that?
Darkness.
Yes. So before your eyes were kind of adjusting to the darkness, then that flash comes and goes off, and now you're back to worse darkness, actually. So it's not very helpful at all, really. Okay, it gave you some clarity to see, but actually not very helpful at all. The fact of the matter is you're still in darkness. So he compares these flashes of bhakti and jnanam. I'm going back to the part one. When your intellect goes up, and you're getting this highest truth, and you're on the verge of conceiving, my intellect is understanding, I've got it, these Upanishads, what great text, I've got it, and you feel Brahman is in the palm of your hand. Similarly, devotion. We talked about that Carnatic music. It spirals you upwards. Really, sometimes you're sitting there, and especially a live performance of Carnatic music, the music is so subtle. You could be listening to chants in a temple, something like that, or whatever devotional practice. You sometimes feel you are right there, sitting next to God, as it were. So this happened in the first part. The mind and intellect takes you to these dizzying heights, just like the flash of lightning gives you that glimpse, but then you're in darkness again. So it's not really helpful. So don't mistake all these things for the reality. So you get that flash, right? You get that insight. But that's not it. Because if it was it, then you'd be able to sustain that experience. But lightning is not sustainable. It comes and goes. That flash is gone. So you may get to that dizzying height, but you're still in the world. You're still in ignorance. You're still in darkness. So all those practices, all that devotion takes you there, but you're in darkness. May gives you a glimpse but sooner or later you're plunged into darkness. And this is what a lot of these has become quite popular literature at the moment. Even in spiritual lobbies, is these what they call as psychedelics. They talk about is cyber silence, and these people having these really like spiritual experiences, DMT. They take you up to the point where you can almost touch God. And then what? Thing wears off and you're back to where you started. And so you actually haven't, it wasn't very helpful at all. It's like that, if you can relate to that example. There's a lot of literature out on it now. So this flash comes, this flash of Atman, as it were. But it doesn't stay. See, you'll see there's actually in the book, you'll see there's a diagram. I'll just bring it up here for you all to see. Which it helps explain this concept a little bit. So I don't know if you all can see that. There's a graph here, X and Y axis, right? So this x-axis represents the consciousness, pure consciousness, right? That's constant. Now there's y-axis, you'll see there these waves going up and down, up and down. This represents the various experiences. Now you'll notice that in and through these experiences, you cross, see at A, B, and C. That experience then comes up, dies down, and hits the consciousness. Then the next one goes, hits the consciousness, hits the consciousness. Right. One saint was approached, and he was asked this question by the student: where is God? Where is God? And the saint said, look between two thoughts. Look between two thoughts. So you'll see over here, you got this thought, which represents an experience, coming up, and it dies down, and then the next one. But in that gap there, between the two thoughts, is the consciousness, right? Is that flash. So, very easy. What do you have to do? Look between two thoughts. If you get between two thoughts, there's the consciousness. Between two thoughts means there's no thought, right? And one thought ends, and just before the next thought starts, there's no thought, right? If you can entertain that. That point is consciousness. Remember, we say the pure consciousness is thoughtlessness. Even in that explanation, you think, wow, all this knowledge and contemplation and reflection, all of that, I think I'll go for option B here. I'll just look between these two thoughts. It's there. The consciousness is with me. It's there. It's got to be. No? Sounds like a good solution. Easy solution. And it is a real solution. There's just one slight problem. It's not that we're dealing with two thoughts. We're dealing with thousands of thoughts, constantly flowing, constantly. How are you going to get in between two thoughts? Impossible. Never. Like a movie. You know what a movie is, right? A movie is made up of individual pictures. They even make these books, these and you page through them very quickly, and the characters move on a book, just a normal book. That's how movies work, if you didn't know. Pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures creates this moving reality. But actually, if you were to stop In between two pictures, there wouldn't be anything. Black screen. But because that reel of film is moving so fast, you don't get the black screen, the nothingness, as it were. Similarly, the thoughts you have are flowing so fast, you can't access that consciousness. This is the problem. So that flash, that consciousness is there, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help because the rapidity of the thoughts flowing. So that lightning comes, but it doesn't actually help you. It doesn't put you in a favorable position. Even if you were to slow the thoughts down, it's temporary. It's a flash. So moving from experience to experience. So again, you can't even capture it. Imagine, they always talk about energy crisis. Imagine we can capture lightning. You can't capture lightning. You can't capture the Atman. So that diagram is very, very helpful. So these number of thoughts or these experiences, the thoughts represent experiences. That's what prevents us from seeing that Atman in its totality. So the consciousness is there. The consciousness is there between every thought of yours. There's no denying it. It's the basis, in fact. But you can't capture it. It's too brilliant. And it's too momentary in its appearance. It comes so quickly and disappears so quickly, you won't even spot it. So that's why it compares the Atman to lightning. This is the first analogy. Second analogy, blinking of the eyes. And the third analogy is the mind. We'll get onto those next week.